Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back from the Beyond the Summit Southeast Asian series. This is going to be a game here between Pang5 and Signature.Trust, which should be absolutely lovely. I'm Lyrical, joined today by Danny Lee Casts, as well as Corrupt Drop Bear on the stats. Danny, it's been raining here all day long, and though the weather outside is frightful, the Dota is so delightful, and since the viewers don't have anywhere else to go, hopefully we're going to have a wonderful show.
Yeah, it should be wonderful. It's raining on my side as well, so it looks like it's raining all around the world.
Pretty much, but you know what? I'm still excited. It's going to be lovely. How are you doing? Do you have a whole heck of a lot of experience with these teams here in particular? I've watched few Signature.Trust games. They're sort of one of the standout teams to me, but I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of Pang5. Do you have a whole lot of experience with them?
Pang5, they played a lot of the GEC games, and for me, they were probably one of the teams that were outstanding in that tournament. They finished, I think, second in their group, and they played against teams such, I'm not too sure if it was I think it was MVP Phoenix that they played against, and they also played up against, it was either TNC or Mineski, and I think they finished the series 1-1. So Pang5, from what I have seen, they've been a very solid team. So honestly, for me, I've got high expectations for this team. Whereas for Signature.Trust, sometimes they get a couple of issues where they draft heroes that are not popular in the meta, and it just doesn't work their way. In particular, for Lyrical, you'll occasionally see Signature.Trust picking up Safely and Invoker for Lyrical. I've seen times of them picking up Troll Warlord, where these heroes, they're not as strong as the current metagame heroes, and because Lyrical doesn't have the biggest start necessary to get these heroes online, I think it's the downfall for Trust. So I think if they play standard, the game should go in favor of Trust, but I'm not going to take anything away from Pang5 as they have a lot of potential. And I learnt as well, now some people call the team Pang5 as Pang, and if you speak a bit of Malay or Indonesian, Lima means 5, but in Malay, Pang Lima means, I think, warrior, so they're essentially like Team Warrior or something.
5 warriors. Oh, that is just, I love that right there. It's cool when you end up having a little bit of a backstory with the names, and obviously languages being very important to be able to sort of understand where they'll come from. That's the thing that I love about Dota. It's just an international game. But let's get right on into the draft a little bit here. We did end up seeing an Alchemist picked on up, as well as a Queen of Pain Tusk and the Winter Wyvern. So a couple of different conflicting metas. I like that here, out of the Alchemist pick, they end up going for a whole heck of a lot of burst damage. You take a look at the Queen of Pain and the Tusk. This is going to be, at least to some extent, an ability to deal with this Alchemist. You need to be able to burst through him. If you have the damage over time, it's just not going to be enough. And maybe you end up seeing, you know, the Sonic Wave on top of the Walrus Punch with a snowball in and a couple of shards thrown out there, and you're going to be able to get a kill. So I like this. I think that it would be pretty cool to be able to see this happen. I am kind of wondering if they might end up going back for the Ancient Apparition. I feel like not, considering they've already picked on up the Tusk and the Night Stalker. Well, they still could. What are your thoughts on that?
They'll be pushing. I'm not too sure about it because they'd be lacking in standard disables. Tusk is okay in that department, but we've seen in games where if your team doesn't have enough disables, heroes just TP out. And if they really, really feel like they need an Ancient Apparition to deal with the Alchemist, then they can hope that they can get a draft to mesh well to support the AA, but I feel like with what they have, they've got tools that are going to be good enough to deal with the Alchemist already. If you can just chain stun him, so AA is still going to happen. The silence, I think, is also crucial for the Alchemist. If you can get that silence off before the Chemical Rage, that can also really cripple the hero, because Alchemist in general isn't that tanky. He's got very low armor gain, and his strength gain isn't really something that you'd be looking at for the hero. It's just mostly the HP regeneration. So Alchemist, I think some people kind of overrate the hero. It's great for farming, but if the hero is behind and he's not able to get farmed, he can't contribute too much because of how squishy he is for a strength hero.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that one of the most unique ways that I feel like I've seen it played more often than not is getting the early Medallion into Solar Crest and then just being able to roam around the map. Maybe you end up picking up an early Blink Dagger, only 1 point in the Grievel's Greed, and max out stun afterwards, and he's really, really potent. But I think that probably, I was going to agree with you that if it was just the Alchemist, they probably didn't need to invest all of this into the Ancient Apparition, because they did have the ability to deal with it there at the start with the Queen of Pain, the Tusk, and the Night Stalker to some extent also there with the silence. I think that probably what they ended up seeing though is now you've got 3 regeneration heroes here. You've got the Alchemist with Alchemical Rage, Cold Embrace, and then also the Healing Ward coming out from Juggernaut. And all of this regeneration, it just seems a little bit too tasty of a target to be picking up that AA. So I think that you're going to need to not be able to sort of have the same type of group up and fight mentality that you might have expected out of this lineup, considering they have great team fight ultimates, being able to lay on down that acid spray. And maybe we might end up seeing a bit more of the split pushy Radiance Alchemist now that you have the Spirit Breaker and a great ability to roam around the map and try to gank heroes as the lanes get pushed out.
Yeah, I could see that happening for Pang5 if they really want to go in that direction. But depending on this last hero pickup, if they can get something to nicely round off the draft, they can team fight Sig.Trust fairly well to a certain degree, because they've also got their own major team fight spell, which is going to be the Winter's Curse. I think if they can get a little bit more AoE, whether it is disable or a nuke, I think Panglima's got a very solid draft here. For Sig.Trust, for now, I'm looking at their draft, and they have a lot of farm-dependent heroes, or heroes that need early farm to sort of come online. You need level 6 on AA, and you want to get the Ags. It's not a necessity, but I think you need it up against the Alchemist. You have a Night Stalker that needs levels to really have an impact in this game. So you've got 2 level-dependent supports already right off the bat. You have a Queen of Pain that's going to be hogging that mid lane, that doesn't really want to give the farm away to anyone else unless you get a successful rotation. Tusk, he's a bit of a weird hero because sometimes he's okay without those levels, and then sometimes he really needs it. So I think for Trust, they're going to be starved for lanes unless they can make things happen to compensate for the fact that they've gone for a pretty greedy early draft.
Yeah, certainly. I think I would agree with you completely there. It's going to come down to if they, like you said, you're either going to run into one of 2 problems, that either the Tusk Night Stalker are going to run out of levels or the Queen of Pain isn't going to have enough levels. And the only way that I really see that being effective this draft right here is if we do see early rotations translating into kills, because that's always the danger of roaming heroes, is that if you don't find those kills, you're not going to be able to scale well into the late game. And it's because you're going to be under leveled, you're going to be under farmed, all that stuff's going to go down. So I do think that probably we're going to see some early rotations here. Ancient Apparition Wraith King is kind of a nice little combo, and I think that they're actually going to be going for, you see this sometimes, Ancient Apparition take an early point in Cold Feet, and what this allows you to do is have the setup for the stun. If you take a look at how this interacts, you end up needing, what is it going to be, after 4 seconds you get the disable off of Cold Feet, so you lay that down first, you end up having the Wraith King stun, and then by the time they're almost going to be able to get out of there, because you end up being slowed by the Race Fire Blast as well, that means that you're going to be able to get the proc on it. So to me, we might even be seeing the Tusk down in the bottom lane trying to make kills happen against the Spirit Breaker. Somewhat of a bit of a squishy, or not squishy, but a bit of a not the strongest offlane hero in the world.
But this Wraith King pickup for Sig.Trust, though, he's a peculiar hero because we don't really see him too often. How well is he going to be able to compete with an Alchemist and a Jug? Because you look at Sig.Trust's draft, it's mainly a single core draft. I don't want to take anything away from Queen of Pain. For me, I don't feel like she scales that well compared to a lot of other mids that are typically picked up. She sort of falls off as the game progresses later and later. So it's essentially a single core lineup here for Trust. And if they don't get this lead, or if they can't actually catch up to Panglima at all this game, I really think that they're on a timer here.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, well, all right, and I was actually about to say that Nyx Assassin would be an interesting pickup for Panglima also. So a couple of things about the Wraith King is that you really do need to be able to have that mana drain for him to be able to be less effective in the later stages. If you can take that out, maybe we might even see a Juggernaut go for Diffusal Blade as like the 3rd or 4th item there to be able to drain away all of the Wraith King's mana if he picks up a Manta style. But it just, I would agree that it does seem like Wraith King isn't going to be able to scale as well. Of course, the plus side of having this Wraith King is that he can fight somewhat early, and he can also, you know, maybe he ends up picking up that Blade Mail and as a damage nuke, sort of just soaking all that up and is going to be able to deal it back towards the side of Panglima. But it does feel a little bit awkward. time will tell what ends up happening, as we do end up having the signature pause from Signature.Trust, and we're going to just keep on moving on through it. But yeah, it feels like maybe if they don't end up getting off to an early lead here for Signature.Trust, they're probably going to lose. And I would imagine that a large part of what they're going to be trying to do here is shut on down what I now think is going to be this Nyx Assassin, because I think that we're probably going to be seeing a Nyx Assassin Spirit Breaker dual offlane until Spirit Breaker gets the levels to be able to start roaming around. That's probably going to be at level 2, although we could also see just the Winter Wyvern move on over to the mid lane also. I'm really curious how Pang5 is planning on laning this at the early stages, but in the meantime we'll do a quick little introduction for them as we get started. Bun is going to be playing your Spirit Breaker. We have Lo on the Alchemist. Rage to the Dream is going to be playing the Nyx Assassin. Sakri is going to be on the Winter Wyvern, and last but not least we got Sugar Bear on the Juggernaut.
On the side of Signature.Trust. On the Radiant squad for today, we have Abba playing on our Night Stalker, Lyrical handling the Wraith King, Female playing on the Ancient Apparition, Jab on the Tusk, and last player is MyPro, who's handling the Queen of Pain that is yet to be picked.
Yeah. As we keep on looking on in here at all of the fine folks. I like this Wraith King set. It's pretty awesome. And oh my goodness, I'm just having so much trouble navigating the little close-up thing. Yeah, so I'm expecting to see now, out of the size of Pang5, possibly you get the Nyx Assassin roaming around trying to set up kills once he gets level 6 and combo that together with the Spirit Breaker, and then maybe you just end up even having the Alchemist try and split push out, because you did mention the late game strategy. I think that they do have it, and Nyx Assassin is really great for being able to hold high ground if he ends up picking up that Aghanim Scepter, and it's something that we've seen more often than not, or not more often than not, but more often recently, given that you sort of have a couple of different draft styles now, and I like the hero as a whole, and I think that he's very strong, particularly when you have these heroes that require mana a lot, because obviously while you don't get the most mana burned out of somebody like a Wraith King because he doesn't have that ridiculously high intelligence, you still do have to be really aware of mana burn as a spell.
Yeah, it's annoying, and I think sometimes you can get lucky in those team fights and you mana burn someone that's about to cast a crucial spell, and it could really turn the tide in your favor, right? So it's just mana burn, going to be super annoying here for Signature.Trust. Because they're going up against a Ancient Apparition, does Signature.Trust have to build maybe more Arcane Boots to sort of supplement the fact that they might have mana issues? Because they don't have the best heroes to actually pick up mana boots.
Yeah, I think that that's something to definitely think about. I would probably like to see a Guardian Greaves at some point. To me, that seems like a pretty solid hero. Where are your thoughts on it? Is there a particular hero that you like that item on more than others?
Greaves?
Yeah.
Honestly, Tusk, I feel like, is the best candidate to pick up Guardian Greaves. I always see this hero picking up mechanisms as well as arcane boots, and it's just because he's always in the middle of the fights.
Yeah.
Night Stalker, in the meantime, he does a similar thing, but his mana pool is much more limited because his spells obviously cost a crap load, and he needs to cast his spells, whereas for Tusk, he can throw a couple of spells, and that's probably going to be it, because cooldowns, bit of a hindrance sometimes for that Tusk.
Yeah, it's especially once you get to in the early stages of the game. I think that that's probably the biggest problem. But the other thing about it, though, is I would really like to be able to see this Tusk pick up a Blink Dagger, and I would almost rather see that before they end up going for the Guardian Greaves, and maybe you just sort of supplement your lack of mana with the Wraith King by being able to, pick up a value Mango, and I'm sure he's going to start off the game with one of those, but even into the later stages, just to be able to make sure that you have that mana to pop off that ulti at the last second. Of course, it is going to cost 160 at every level, so needs to have at least 10 in the tank to make it work. But I think that the value of being able to keep a Wraith King in a snowball, or anybody else like that, when you have spells like the Winter's Wyvern ulti, when you've got something like the Juggernaut Omni Slash, being able to sort of weather through the storm of those spells is going to be so important to how well they end up doing, particularly if you think about the big grouping up that you can sometimes see with the Winter Wyvern ultimate coming through, and Juggernauts more often than not going for Blade Fury or Battle Furies. Nowadays, it just to me seems like that's going to be a really important spell this game, is the Snowball save.
Yeah, I actually want to touch onto this a little bit more. So you said you were talking about how there was a little bit of grouping up. Oh goodness, we have a blackout. Oh dear. All right. So touching on to what I was going to talk about. So with this grouping up, Signature Trust has 3 melee core heroes. And you're going into a Winter Wyvern who has a Winter's Curse. You have Acid Spray. You have the potential of being hit by a multi-hero impale by Pang5. I don't think Signature Trust can actually go in 5-man into Pang5 unless some of these spells are thrown prematurely. So I think ease of execution is in favor of Pang5 just because of this tri melee core, or I guess dual melee core plus a melee support draft by Trust.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I think, though, that really, to me, the strength of Pang5's lineup is in the high ground defense. Because while you are still going to be able to fight in a 5-man lineup, oftentimes when you get outside of the base, things get a little bit more spread out. You're not going to be able to sort of line up all of those combos together. And I like Signature's Trust ability to sort of pick off heroes one by one a little bit more, particularly once you end up getting to nighttime stage and, maybe Night Stalker ends up picking up his Agnum Scepter. To me, it feels like they're much more sort of clippy, fighty here and there, backing out in and out of the fight. And they're going to be probably more maneuverable out of these sides, with the exception of the Spirit Breaker. Obviously, Nyx does end up picking up a Blink Dagger on occasion, but I feel like the movement speed advantage, all of the heroes from Signature Trust, with the exception of the Ancient Apparition, are going to be wanting to either have the Blink in the case of the Queen of Pain, or probably pick up the Blink. I think that the build more often than not nowadays for Wraith King is to get that item relatively early with a Blade Mail thrown in there also. So I think that probably you end up seeing the high ground push might be the point where Signature Trust end up stalling out. And it's going to come down to them hitting some really clutch AA blasts for them to have a chance.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of emphasis on this AA this game. There's a lot of targets that he has to hit, but I'm not too sure if Fei-Mao is going to be able to hit everybody unless he's on the other side of the map. So a bit of pressure on the AA to really perform. And I think for Signature Trust, if Fei-Mao actually misses some of these Ice Blasts, I don't think the fights are going to go too well for Trust. There's a lot of emphasis on this AA.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be the biggest probably spells in these games. And I obviously Winter Wyvern Ultimate is always going to be relevant, but I just don't see the side of Signature Trust grouping together and being too close to each other all that often. I think that the Night Stalker is going to be running around here and there, and if they do get caught out, it's probably not going to be more than 2 heroes, I wouldn't imagine. What are your thoughts on that? Is that sort of what you're thinking too, or do you think that there's a chance that they end up getting caught out?
Honestly, we have to take a look at how these teams play, because it just happens. Stuff happens. We can say this, we can say that, and then the team does something completely different and make us look like we're stupid ducks. So, so we're just going to have to see how the game goes. If Fei-Mao, if he's a really good AA player, then we will see it. Otherwise, if they expect this sort of plays to come through, then it'll be a bit hard for AA to really stand out. And it seems that this blackout is causing us really, really big issues.
Well, just so everybody knows out there in chat, we do have a 10-minute pause rule in this series, in this set. So if we do end up getting to that point, Pang5 are going to be able to resume the game if they so desire. And not having your mid player is generally not the best thing for your draft and being able to win a game. Although there are ways to sort of work around this a little bit, particularly if we are going to be running that dual safe lane that I was thinking of, the Wraith King as well as the Ancient Apparition. Maybe you just end up, giving away the ability to... Oh, actually, you know what? It's not the AA that's missing. I was going to say that the Ancient Apparition could kind of just be microed by the Wraith King, but I don't think you actually can do that in Dota 2. You can only just micro the other player. This could be a little bit tough for them.
Not just that, though. It's a Queen of Pain, and you can't buy items on that hero.
Yeah.
I think that's the major aspect of it. I think Dota 2 changes if they somehow make it so that you can actually buy items on a player that's disconnected. So then you can still use that hero to its full extent. I think the game changes, because I've seen games where Medusas have disconnected, and because it's in a super late game scenario, it's okay because that hero is 6 slot. When the game hasn't even started and your mid has blacked out, it's completely different.
Well,
oh my god, he's back!
We did it! We did it, everybody! My pro is going to be back in the game. Blackout or no blackout, we're going to be making it happen. And you know what's the best part about this type of disconnect at the very beginning? Is that hopefully in the next series it won't end up happening again, because oftentimes blackouts don't recur right after each other. Is that Queen of Pain doing like a little backflip. All right, yeah, she has a backflip and gets back into the game. Wonderful. Everybody's ready to go. Rage to the Dream is going to be playing it. And we actually do have two heroes TPing out to the mid lane. Going to end up running into each other. This is ever so slightly awkward as they do see each other, and now going to have to do a little bit of ward mind games with each other to make sure they don't end up spotting out where those get placed.
Yes,
Oh,
I
look
see
at that play.
That play, very sneaky coming out from Abba, or Ab. Oh, Jab. I missed the J.
It's all good. It's
my
all good. Yeah, I think that nobody saw that, though, so he walked down and placed it, even though the Winter Wyvern didn't see it. So regardless, the thing that we didn't really talk about either is the bounty runes here. I think that Signature.Trust has a good lineup to be able to fight for this bounty rune, and I would really like to see them come and try and deny it to the Alchemist, because you got the Tusk, you've got the Ancient Apparition with the Chilling Touch, you've got the ability to move on in there and fight for it early, and just giving away that 500 free gold, I really don't think that that's good to be able to give away to this Alchemist, and it looks like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, so looks like it's going to be what could be a rune going in the way of the Alchemist. Now, before this happens, actually, it might happen before I can really say anything. So, Signature.Trust can be coming in, and it looks like for Pang5, they're going to back out. It looks like Alchemist is not going to get the rune. So, they do deny the top rune, and looks like bottom rune's going to be secured here by Lyrical. So, it could be double runes going in the way of Signature.Trust, and they do get both. Oh, Pang5.
What was that? That was really weird. Well, regardless, we're going to end up moving on in here. I'm not exactly sure. It sounds like my in-game sound is a little bit messed up right now, but I'll work on that in a little bit if it does end up being a problem. Let me know in chat if there are any things like that. It looks like it's going to be a try-mid at the very start of this one. Queen of Pain, also the Tusk and the Ancient Apparition, looking to try and shut on down this hero in the early stages, and they definitely can. Snowball forward, that's going to be able to be connecting now. Chilling Touch coming out, and he's dead. First blood.
Easy kill for Signature.Trust. I love this aggression that they're already applying to the Alchemist, because it means that Alch can't simply farm in the mid lane like he typically would. He would just normally throw acid spray and farm away. No, he now has to be fully aware that Trust is ready to commit an extra 2 heroes to secure the kill on the Alchemist. Now, what I wanted to talk about is actually still relevant with the Alchemist here. During my GEC casts, I think it was Pang5 that ran the Alchemist, and it was one of the MVP teams that they were up against. And what MVP did was incredibly risky. They put everything into denying bounty runes, denying kills, denying lanes to the Alchemist. The hero never came online and ended up being dead weight. He couldn't even farm the jungle because they even warded the jungle. And if they spotted him in there, they just went completely ham on that hero. So if Trust does the same thing, it's not going to be as high impact though, because there's still a Juggernaut on the field. So it means that there's a secondary core for Pang5 to fall back to, and for Trust, they can, I think for this game, they'll be happy if they can just at least slow the Alchemist's farm down in the mid lane long enough for them to get their levels, as well as accumulate some of their starting items, and then going for that possibly death push or death roam that we sometimes see.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, it's always good to be able to see an Alchemist get shut down. I see him in my pubs all the time. It's very frustrating. We are going to have a little bit of a battle for the rune here, and they're sending it on out. That's going to be the Night Stalker picking up the bounty rune. He might end up paying for it a little bit, but at least at this point, no bashes have come out. I'm trying to click on that Spirit Breaker. He does have bash leveled up, but not going to be able to get any of them. Tango dodge away. Orb of Venom still going to be committed here, dropping a little bit low. Secondary charge forward onto the Night Stalker. Is he going to be able to survive? No. One last right click. Oh, he gets away on 8 HP. Oh man, really well played there, and he does also have a salve up, so he's going to be fine. Absolutely
Stout
perfectly
shield.
good.
Stout shield value, and Alchemist dies in the mid lane as they bring in the Tusk. So the kill that was supposed to go on the way of Pang5 doesn't happen, and they lose their Alch. Oh, this is not the game if you're Pang5.
That is so frustrating. The other thing there is that since they ended up committing so much over there to that Night Stalker, Queen of Pain was able to get away on almost nothing. If Spirit Breaker had a little bit more mana in him, he probably could have charged on in, and unfortunately just not going to be able to make that happen. So across the board, not everything going Pang5's side. The plus side is that they do have a Juggernaut that's farming here, and he is currently 18-7, doing a pretty decent job.
So looks at stats. Spirit Breaker hits Night Stalker with Orb of Venom for 2 damage. What?
Not exactly sure there, but it does look like it was very close to being able to take him on out. That is for dang sure. Strives on 2 HP, excuse me. Okay, yeah, that would have been a heck of a lot closer.
Okay.
So, but and again, that recent change that we ended up seeing, was it recent for Night Stalker where he ended up getting a little bit of extra base regen? He ends up having 2 regen per second, I believe, just as the static for him, which is really great. And I think that's part of the reason why he ends up being able to, be such a successful offlaner. Also having that 6 armor just as the base there. They are going to be maybe roaming on in here again on him, top of him. Can they find this kill? Spiritbreaker is here looking for a bash. Doesn't even get off a right click though. Oh man, want to be able to get that Orb of Venom proc on top of him, but not going to be able to be the case this time around. And do we see the bounty rune? We are going to see it, but that is the first bounty rune of the game and might end up getting caught out here. Shards have been committed. They're not going to go forward onto this one, considering that the Queen of Pain right now does not have that level 6 as of yet.
Yeah, but I think that Alk, because he managed to at least get the bounty rune, he's going to be doing okay. He's not even behind the Queen of Pain, which is great news for Pang5. So even though there was a lot of pressure applied to the Alchemist, he's still even in terms of CS. And this is not good if you're Sig.Trust. You still want to shut down the Alchemist, but you cannot really commit too much to the point where the other lanes are a little bit too free to do whatever the hell they want. So I think for Trust, they have to prioritize a hero, and it looks like it will be that mid lane, as both heroes, 2 tanky heroes actually from Trust, are going to be smoked up and waiting in the wings for this Alchemist to sort of stick his head out, but sitting really far back. Very defensive positioning. I think he's going to go forward now as Tusk. Oh, I think he may have just blown the smoke here. Oh, never mind. They actually didn't see it. It's still nighttime, and all of a sudden, here's the initiation. And Alk, unfortunately, without the level 6 and the ult, unable to get out of that charge. They're coming in onto Aber as the Winter Wyvern looks like he's going to try and commit, but in the meantime, just gets jumped on by Sig.Trust. Too much burst, and unfortunately for Bun, by himself, he cannot do anything to these 3 heroes. Nice kills for Trust.
I mean, that's just the fact that Night Stalker now has been a part of 2 kills at the very beginning of the nighttime phase. Well, around the middle of it, honestly, the point we're at right now. But it's just, that's exactly what this hero needs to get started off right. And you did say, obviously, that the Queen of Pain on relatively even footing with the Alchemist before that engagement. But it really just goes to show the power here that you end up having from this hero. She didn't even have to use her ultimate there. Just a couple of quick, solid rotations, and now they're in a great position for her because she's able to take advantage of it. Like, Alchemist not being that far behind is fine if he is going to be able to sort of have relative free farm from then on out. But the Queen of Pain is just such an aggressive hero at these stages in terms of her damage output that you need to be able to be a little bit more tanky, and it's just not going to be the case. They do end up jumping here on top of the Ancient Apparition. This is going to be their first kill of the game, I do believe, but the Chilling Touch has now been committed from the Wraith King. Nice little carapace there, going to be able to keep him alive a little bit longer, but now a couple of right clicks are going to be coming in. Body blocks, maybe? He might be able to dive for this one. No, not going to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, just not enough slows for the Wraith King to really output the damage onto Rage. So Nyx gets out nicely, and Nyx is going to chew on a tango, and also because Nyx, in a similar situation to the Night Stalker, also has some nice base regeneration, he can just really sit in lane and do whatever he wants. It's not that easy for the Wraith King to kill him off by himself. And we have another smoke rotation here for Sig.Trust. So aggression after aggression. They know the Alk is here. You can't even farm the jungle, my friend. You're going to be blocked off. Easy kill for Trust. This aggression, I'm loving it from Sig.Trust. They're playing spot on, great wards, good vision, good decision making. They're shutting down the Alchemist completely. And I think for the Alk, he cannot really accumulate too much gold. Is this going to have to be a transitional early game? Oh, not early game, but utility Alk till he gets that farm. Poor Sakura actually being jumped on here by the Tusk. We'll be able to fly over the shards. Night Stalker in the meantime. There is a silence. No more disables. Here's a charge. So they're going to try and jump onto Jab, it seems. And they get one bash, spins there, and unfortunately Tusk cannot outrun this, will get picked off. In the meantime, it looks like Night Stalker got the kill in the Winter Wyvern, wants to try and get out of this. He's really quick, but the charge should be enough to keep him in place here, and Sugar Bear's going to come in with a final right click, slays the Night Stalker. So 2 for 1 trade. In the meantime, we have a Wraith King that's just picked up a Hand of Midas.
Yeah, and that's really the key thing here. I was keeping an eye on him down there in the bottom lane, that he was sort of constantly just being able to farm away and perfectly content with this one to be able to make that rotation happen. I will say they probably overdove a little bit. We saw the Night Stalker end up getting body blocked by the creeps, unfortunately. Just came right in for the gank on the Winter Wyvern as the creep wave was moving by. A bit of bad luck. And the other thing was that if they did end up getting the Void before the Winter Wyvern ended up being able to get to the other side of the trees, I think that they probably get that kill off clean. And we do end up seeing another jump jump forward. Zachary dropping a little bit low. The thing to also note about this, Queen of Pain hasn't used the Sonic Wave as of yet in these engagements, so is going to hold it on for the moment, and that's going to be able to connect onto the Spirit Breaker also. Tried to go for the Courier, I think, but the blink away after the Omni Stash, staying alive. My Pro, 2 Pro for them. And now we've got a couple other heroes that are rotated on in here. Smoked Up are 3, and if they want to, they can dive on here on top of the Alchemist, and they're going to be able to catch onto him. They have another Shards jumping forward, and My Pro still in the area. This Queen of Pain is just making her presence felt all over the place. Another kill. She's been involved right now in 6 of the 8 kills in this match, and just doing a fantabulous job.
There is just no space in the mid lane and the jungle for Pang5. They can't go anywhere with any of their other heroes to really take advantage of that lane as well as the jungle. Jug's doing fine, which is it's good news for Pang5, but depending on how this Juggernaut is building, if he builds into more of a late game commitment Jug, he's not going to be able to provide too much for the team, and missing that kill with the Omni Slash, if the Queen of Pain didn't have the blink, it should have been a secured kill. But with the blink out, it wastes the Omni Slash, so 75-second cooldown on that means that Sugar Bear he's not going to be a non-threat. It's just that he's not as scary as he generally would be as a Jug.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the other thing is, going for that drums build, it's not something that you always see, but it does show that they want to try and be aggressive early. The other problem that I'm kind of seeing with this, if you take a look at hero levels right now, the Winter Wyvern is only level 3, significantly underfarmed, currently 0-3 on this hero, and this is something that's going to be a problem because you're seeing this open jungle or open lane being given to this Ancient Apparition. You also have been able to see consistently the Tusk roaming around. They're going to have level 6 and be much more relevant as you move on into this sort of beginning of the mid-game stage. For a long time, they're not going to have that Winter Wyvern ulti unless they end up getting a bit of free experience here, and it doesn't look to be the case anytime soon. I'm really concerned about this Winter Wyvern's ability to be relevant at all in this game. The biggest thing that they're going to be able to have out of her is the Cold Embrace coming out. If we do end up having a charge here in the top lane, TPs have not been committed as of yet. They do start to come in now, maybe baiting on out here a little bit on Abba. They're going to be able to turn this one back around. Wraithfire Blast connected onto the Spirit Breaker. They're not going to be able to find the kill on this Night Stalker, who's level 7 and just too tanky.
Oh my goodness. Pang5, does it feel like with that kill it was just more of a desperation move in an attempt to get something at least? Because they're sitting on 3 kills compared to the 9. Their Sig.Trust have tripled them in kills. They overlapped them in EXP as well as net worth. It's not looking good for Pang5. What do you think Pang5 is going to have to fall back to? Is it going to mainly be on the back of just really getting this farm on Sugar Bear and hoping that the Alchemist is going to have a little bit of space? Is it hoping that maybe a successful Nyx gank happens? Because as I see it now for Nyx, he hasn't moved out of the lane at all. So the Nyx effect hasn't really been felt yet by Trust.
I think that this is probably was one of the better ideas for them, was to bring the Spirit Breaker on in to gank the Alchemist, but that needs to be set up by Nyx leaving lane, and then they think that he's gone over to the mid lane or somewhere else, and then you wrap around a second time on the Ancient Apparition. He was just sitting there in lane, so any aggressive movements at all were going to end up being immediately spotted on out there, and they were not going to be able to find that kill. So that's one thing. The other thing is they desperately need to keep this Winter Wyvern in a lane somewhere. This is a hero that shouldn't be ganking at this point. Winter Wyvern can gank, but they're going to roam 5 heroes in here. If they don't find this kill on this A, this is going to be a disaster. We do end up just having the TP away, and it's going to be able to get out. Oh no. Like, imagine right now if you ended up having the Winter Wyvern instead sitting in the mid lane, just soaking up experience, throwing out those Splinter Blasts whenever possible. You end up getting up to a level 6 a little bit more quickly, and then you no longer have as many of these problems of not being leveled up, and I'm just really concerned about them at this point.
It's not just that, though. I think for Zachary, he doesn't want to be in a lane by himself because you know how Trust has been continuously jumping on Pang5. So it's really hard for the Wyvern to sort of get any sort of EXP. Poor Bun could be locked in here by 2 heroes. In the meantime, though, Sugar Bear, he tried to come with an Omni Slash, not really doing too much between these two. And Tusk has a snowball. It's going to buy time for the rest of the team to come in, and My Pro Sonic Wave blows up the Juggernaut immediately, followed by the Wyvern and the Spirit Breaker. 3 heroes gone for Pang5, and the only survivor out of there was the Nyx Assassin, who pops the invis to get out. I'm pretty sure you need to use this aggressively too, but to each their own.
Yeah, it's just so hard right now. Like, they have the pieces to be able to make this happen. You talked about the Winter Wyvern being afraid of being in a lane alone, and I would agree with you that it's definitely a scary situation, but you almost have to sort of bet on this type of thing to happen. They're going to try and charge here on the Ancient Apparition, end up canceling it because there isn't really a great way to be able to find that kill super easily. And now the Nyx is actually going to run out of invis and is behind enemy lines for 30 seconds at least, unless he ends up being able to get out of here. But it's so important to have that spell in terms of your ability to keep alive. They are going to charge on in here, tossing out the AA blast. That's going to connect onto Bun. But now the Night Stalker is here, maybe going to be able to turn this one back around, and it's a disaster at this point. They are going to get the Ancient Apparition, but at what cost? Spearbreaker goes down, and now Nyx is going to fall. Oh, it is just desperation and not really being able to make the most of it at this point for Pang5.
That would have been okay if the Night Stalker did not silence the Nyx as he just came out. Nyx was going to go in and through the Impale, but the animation was a little bit too long, and then the silence came out. And then if you're a silenced Nyx assassin, you're just a sitting duck. So unfortunate for the Nyx to not really get the spells out, because I think they would have gotten that kill much sooner if he was able to contribute, but it's just really good plays coming out from Trust. They're just finding the right targets all the time, and they're even going to blink forward onto Zachary, who's going to be finished off quite quickly, and now Bun, the next target, have a Night Stalker tanking a T2 tower. They don't care about towers anymore. AA Blast will completely whiff the heroes, but here comes Sugar Bear that's come in. There's 12 seconds on the Omni Slash, but I don't think they care at this point. It's 14 minutes, and you'd think they'd be squishy, but there's a blink forward by Lyrical. He wants this kill. The stun's there from Nyx, but Jug drops first. They get the kill onto the Wraith King, who didn't actually get the reincarnation off, it seems. No mana for him. And they get punished slightly, but very slightly.
Definitely, and that whole time, I think the biggest reason for that was because the Tusk was up on the top lane trying to take out the Alchemist and just didn't have enough damage because the rest of the team were just destroying the mid lane. And I think that, like, all right, a couple of things there. First of all, Nyx, really good play, not going for the Vendetta hit, instead just going for that Impale, realized that it was more important to get the stuns down, and then finishes off the Wraith King in the end with that mana burn. So he was able to take away that mana before they are going to be able to get the kill. Really nicely played there. But the other important part, like, you think about that engagement and instead being able to have that Winter Wyvern ulti, it's just so important. And now still level 4, nowhere near in sight. And they're going to be able to jump on top of him at every single time right now. And I think the other thing, Alchemist is just now going to be able to almost finish off the Radiance. This is, I think, 6 minutes behind the fastest time ever, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty late. And Radiance, while it's great, it's not the answer to your problems. It's the first step in terms of being the answer. You need to be able to pick on up that Manta style next to really be able to have that split push game going. And while they haven't lost any tier 2 towers yet, it's feeling more and more like they're not going to be able to stem this really aggressive push that you're having. You don't have the levels up on this hero that's going to allow you to extend the game. You don't have the items that are going to be up to be able to make your Nyx assassin more tanky and actually be a presence in this team fights. If he gets found out, if they have that reveal, he's just going to get destroyed. And then the Spirit Breaker also just now hitting level 6, that's somewhat relevant, but it's still just going to be a single target lockdown. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to sort of deal with the next couple of minutes here, particularly since you're starting to get a couple more of these survivability items that signal they want to end the game quickly. Tusk picking up the Bracer. You do have the Hand of Midas on the Night Stalker, so that's something that's pushing them a little bit to the later stages, but also there's no real way to punish that. So I just, it's looking really terrible for Pang5 at this point.
For Pang5, is it an option for them to maybe go for that sort of elusive play where they avoid as many team fights as possible whilst trying to accumulate those items? It might give away towers, but high ground doesn't look too favorable for Trust. Even though they've got a lot of spells they can throw high ground and they can snowball in, it is still high ground. And I think for Pang5, that might be the sort of glimmer of hope when it comes to potentially getting a team fight that turns the game in their favor. As you said, with the Radiance, I'm surprised he really went for this Radiance, but it is still an okay timing. It's not late. It's late, yeah, because late. He was pressured, but it is still, I think at this point, it's not that bad of an item, because look at the HP pulls on these Signature.Trust heroes. All Alchemist has to do after he gets this Radiance is he's going to keep on farming. He needs to tank up a little bit. Once he's tanked up a little bit and he can actually sit around in these team fights, burning some of these heroes on Trust who have really low HP pools and not much regen is really going to hurt Trust. And for them, it could be a moment where they're going to have a slight weakness versus Pang5 and maybe the team fight is going to shift in favor of the Dire squad. But it is, again, dependent on the farm, on whether or not LOL is going to be able to get that farm.
Yeah, it's I think that probably it's the item that you have to go. It's not the way that you wanted to be able to get there, and they are going to be able to defend the high ground to some extent. They need to sort of, as you said, they're going to toss out an A blast, which is just going to be able to catch on to him immediately. And if he ends up going down right now, which I think he is, this is going to be so disastrous. That's another huge loss in terms of his ability to stay alive here. And they aren't going to be able to get off the breaking of the TPs. Nether Strike ends up getting canceled because they move on out of the range, and it's just all bad right now. You saw there the vision flickering in and on out. They weren't quite able to get it there. Just so frustrating. The thing, it's a 900 gold swing. Like, if this was a couple of minutes ago, before they ended up losing several of these tier 1 towers, I think that they have a better chance of being able to play that split push game. But now that they've lost it, they're also going to start to lose a ton of map vision. And that's going to be a big problem for them, because now you not only, like, there was a ward that was up here on the high ground over in the jungle that was going to be able to give them pretty good vision of their own jungle to make sure they didn't end up getting ganked. And now they don't have that, although we are going to see the Spirit Breaker probably come on over here and place one in a second or two. They just need to have more vision up so that way they can see it coming. They can see the ganks coming at them. And if they don't have that, then they're just going to lose all map vision, start losing towers like mad, and then they aren't going to have the ability to farm up at all. And it looks like now, what do you do to counter this? They can group on up and push, and there's just no problem at all doing it.
I think Pang5 just has to give this away. Just don't even contest Trust at this point. Just try to get as much as you can whilst they're still busy with the towers. And got Sugar Bear that's going to come in. It's a Night Stalker. Just go straight for the spin, straight TP, and there's nothing for Trust that they could do. So there's no kill. I think this is really it for Pang5. They just have to avoid as much as possible. And this is actually kind of working out for them, as everyone on Trust was down south. They find out Bun in the mid lane. He's been just unlocked to hell and finished up quite quickly. But it's giving a little bit of space in the jungle. Next gets a kill on the Ancient Apparition, though. That's some good news for Pang5 as they secure a small kill. There's no AA Blast anymore. Does Pang5 actually think about fighting without the AA Blast?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. I think that you just need to try and get away from whatever kills you can. They have the heroes to be able to make this happen. They're going to jump on top of the Alchemist here, who's going to end up stunning himself in a second. Oh, this is a disaster. Sonic Wave comes out. Well played there. All right, so a little bit of luck going back their direction. We are going to also be able to pop the ulti. No, 75 HP is what Wraith King gets away that time. Looks like they might be thinking about it, actually. They did commit Sonic Wave for it, so this is a moment now with no AA Blast and also no Sonic Wave where they can probably make something happen here. They're going to be able to get the silence there on top of Bun, pushes them on into the trees as well. But there's the AA Blast on top of 5. Pretty nicely done there. Wraith King Ultimate slowing everybody down. They did end up getting in one last item from the Courier, but still they were able to get a kill on the Juggernaut, so he is dead. Bun's going to fall also. They leave him alone and turn their faces onto this Winter Wyvern, who's going to go down in a second or two. They're jumping on over here. I think that Rage to the Dream is still dead in a second, but also the Winter Wyvern going to fall. Coming back in, a Wraithfire Blast is up. That's going to be one more final kill for them, and also they are not going to be able to get the kill on the Nyx, unfortunately. Triple kill for this Wraith King.
So we're almost 20 minutes in. Can I point out we still have no Winter's Curse?
Yeah.
Oh, sad day for a Wyvern. This is when you don't want to be a Wyvern. You need the Winter's Curse so badly. But in the meantime, though, that team fight for Pang5, it looked terrible. They got a kill, though. Got a couple of kills in that fight. I think the biggest one was getting that kill onto MyPro, and the Nyx Assassin was the one that was able to finish that off. And if I'm not mistaken, Rage to the Dream, he actually finished up a Blink Dagger off the back of that one kill. So you now have a Nyx that's running around with a pretty big item that might have some solo kill potential now, and also has a defensive mechanism to fall back to. So I think Feimao, not looking too good. Gets the stun, easy kill. He has a blink available if he needs to. But is this what Pang5 needs? Is this the Nyx that they're looking for to help them stay in the game?
It is. It's still going to require them to have the Alchemist around also, and he needs to get a bit more farm. And now that he's going to almost be able to pick on up that Yasha, if he doesn't go for Manta Style here, I think that that might be a bit of a mistake. But I'm assuming that's what he's going to go for in a second, as we do have something brought out on the Courier. It's actually going to be going for Boots of Travel first. I'm still kind of okay with this. I probably would have rather seen the Manta Style first, but the fact that he's going to be able to get back into the team fights quickly makes a good amount of sense. So they have the ability to pick off heroes as they're trying to push out lanes, and also as they're just passively farming. The problem, again, is that if they end up moving in as 5 like this, what do you do against this lineup? You just can't do anything. Now we're going to get an A-Blast on top of 2. Snowball forward, going to connect. Spirit Breaker on the back lines, but they don't have enough to kill off that Queen of Pain. Now we also have the Vendetta and the jump forward on the Omni Slash. Wraith King falls. Nice defensive Snowball is going to be coming out. No, already was committed at that point, and now Queen of Pain needs to jump out of there. Very low on mana at this point. Bun is going to fall. Winter's Curse finally up, is going to be committed for this one. 2 for 2 trade. This is about the best that you could hope at this point for Pang5, and unfortunately not going to be able to find that kill over there. We do have another jump forward, though, and with the Ancient Apparition here, Cold Feet going to be enough to kill off that Winter Wyvern, and you thought that it was good. It didn't end up working out completely well, but I think that they're worth it at that point. Still, even though they ended up losing 3, the gold advantage going back in their favor.
Not just gold, but I think the more important thing was the EXP. So Winter Wyvern... Okay, what's Winter Wyvern's level now? She survived for the majority of the fight, is sitting at level 7 now. She had the Winter's Curse, and we saw that even though it didn't have high impact, we see that just having the extra disable just helped them keeping the hero down. They didn't get the kill on the Night Stalker, unfortunately, because he's a little bit too fast, but they now have a major asset that's available to them, which they didn't have previously, and now Trust has to be a little bit more careful. This poor Alchemist runs straight into a Night Stalker. It does get slowed up and silenced, though, so both sides are sort of repelling each other at this point. They won't jump onto the Alk yet, but is it Trust looking to group up and push again? Sorry, not Alk. The AA is also finished up a Hand of Midas, I think. Yeah. Gloves arriving. He's got the recipe. So now there's a timing window where there is a timing window where there's no Aghanim Scepter. Once the Aghanim Scepter comes online, I think that's going to be it for Pang5.
It's definitely going to be a big problem. The other one is that other important Aghanim Scepter, the Night Stalker, only about 800 gold from finishing it off. To me, that's going to be another defining moment. They do still have the pieces, and we've talked about this a couple of times on the side of Pang5 to make this work. And the fact that they haven't lost another tower since in about, I want to say, 4 or 5 minutes here, this has been a pretty important moment here. Because if they're able to weather the storm, you know, Winter Wyvern consistently able to keep heroes off of towers with that Splinter Blast, also being able to have the great comeback potential from that Winter's Curse. The Juggernaut didn't end up going for the Battle Fury, which is, I think, probably okay, but it does mean he's not going to scale as well into the late game, and he probably needed that just to be able to stay relevant in these team fights and really stay alive throughout the big burst damage that you've got going. But it does mean that the sort of timer that we were talking about for Signature.Trust isn't as steep of a curve as it would have been before. They've still got the ability to out-carry them, I think, on the side of Pang5, but it's not as significant as it would have been if he ended up going for that Battle Fury and just really accelerated into farm.
Yeah, I think so as well. So this is good news for Pang5. They still have a chance at really making a comeback. It's just dependent on whether they can make a series of events happen according to how they would like it to. So enough about Pang5, as they really need a lot of things going right for their way. For Signature.Trust, they're playing very well so far. They've had a couple of shaky team fights. The game's still in their favor. What do you think's the plan here for Trust? Are there any items that they're waiting for? Are they aiming to maybe go for Roche at some point before they go for the death push? What does Trust do to keep their lead?
I think BKBs are really good here, and that does look like we're going to be seeing them on the Queen of Pain, also the Wraith King. We do have Jab move on in here. He's going to find out Sugar Bear. They are going to be able to initiate on the backside, also with the Vendetta on out in a second or two. Blade Fury coming out. They're able to take a little bit of mana away from that Queen of Pain. Also, now separated from the herd, Wraith King's going to go down getting slowed up, but they don't have any follow-up to this one. He might end up dying twice if he's not careful. There's the BKB pop, but to what end? Sonic Wave committed. Now we end up getting a double kill on the Alchemist, looking really great for Pang5. How are they able to do this one? Just able to separate them and not fight at the point that they want. They are going to be able to get the Radiance Burn on top of the Night Stalker. He's running away really quickly, but I don't know if they're going to be able to really come back from this one at this point. Nice impale forward with that Blink Dagger. This is all looking great for Pang5. He is going to end up going down. Juggernaut gets a kill on him. That's 500 gold going that direction. Is going to mana burn, but not a whole lot of mana to burn. He's still going to go down in the end. 4-man team wipe for only the Winter Wyvern. What a fantastic fight for Pang5. Exactly what they needed in that one.
I call Caster's Curse for that one. I call Caster's Curse. Oh my goodness. But that fight was wonderful for Pang5. They've got to be so happy about that. They got a crap load of gold out of it. And they're now going to take a Roche as well. And then all of a sudden, you look at the position of Trust. They lost a horrible team fight. They got absolutely nothing. And they lost a lot out of it. They still have their T1 tower in the mid lane, but taking a look at Jug as well as Alk, these heroes can make a lot happen if you give them huge injections of gold. So that is deadly for Trust. What at this point do they keep trying to do the exact same thing as they did before, or do they maybe go for a smoke gank instead to be a little bit more, a little less obvious when they go for their rotations? Because I think they still have to play aggressive. You cannot play passively versus Pang5.
I agree. I think that you need to play aggressive. If you're the side of Pang5, it's important also to have a little bit of awareness that that was the perfect initiation for them. The fact that Tusk was the first hero to get picked off, he wasn't able to defensively snowball, he wasn't able to keep anybody alive, and he got taken out of that fight. This is the most important hero in the game, I think, at this point. Outside of maybe the Queen of Pain for damage, Tusk needs to be able to keep people alive in these fights. And then the Queen of Pain got mana burned at the beginning also, so she didn't feel comfortable jumping in, wasn't able to lay down the Orchid on top of anybody. The Nyx Assassin was just doing a ton of work there. The fact that he was able to also scout it out, they knew what type of initiation they wanted to get. So for Signature.Trust, I think you chalk that one up to a little bit of bad intelligence, a little bit of bad mobility and understanding of where the rest of the team was on the map. The fact that the Nyx was just able to get inside their back ranks right there, it just shows off that they need to be able to have that vision advantage. And now with the Night Stalker Gen Aghanims, that's what I see being the possibility. Now, speaking of which, he actually gets caught out. The A Blast is going to connect onto 2 at least, and maybe that's going to dissuade them from pushing too much further right now. But God, they need to wait for nighttime. I think that's the biggest thing, is get a gem up on him, either through him farming it up himself or getting it on somebody else. But they need to have the initiation that they want on their terms with that gem. And if they don't, I think that they might end up losing this game. They're actually going to be able to jump forward down here on the bottom side, Vendetta out, as well as the Impale on top of the Tusk. This is the hero that's most important. Is he going to end up going down here? Snowball can't come out. That's going to be a re-initiation on top of the Nyx Assassin, who's up on the high ground. They found him on out, meanwhile separated from the rest of the herd, but the Tusk goes down for the Nyx. 3 heroes dead on the side of Signature.Trust. What is going on right now? He's going to end up being able to get out of here, I do think. Manta style up on the Juggernaut. Still a lot of damage coming out. That's going to be a dead Spirit Breaker. He goes down. Maybe going to be able to kill him off a second time. I don't think that they have enough to be able to turn this back around on the side of Signature.Trust. He's going to go down, is going to be able to finally get taken out, even though they're under the tier 2 tower. Oh my goodness.
So is it safe to say at this game that Signature.Trust may have just sort of lost everything that they've worked hard for? Because it feels like it. They had such an amazing advantage during the early game. They pretty much asserted complete map dominance against Pang5. And then one bad team fight, Townsend Hyper Abba was really nice there. But not just one bad team fight, but everything escalated outside of that one team fight. And it looks like Pang5 is the one that's ahead now, because they're looking so much more confident because they have these items. Like, look at the Alk now. He only had Radiance and I think Aurora Boots previously. Now he's got Manta Style, and he's very, very close to his, oh god, I forgot the item name.
Octarine, yeah.
Thank you.
It's terrible. It's like, I think the biggest heroes in this game have been focusing each other to some extent. The Nyx Assassin has been taking out at the fight, the very beginning, that Tusk. The other hero that if they can kill off would be huge would be that Ancient Apparition, who they've also been able to find several times in the engagements. And the fact that they haven't really responded to this at all, now you end up seeing the Night Stalker get his gem. Like, the Tusk was just outside of his base in that last engagement, and then he got focused, and then the rest of the side of Signature.Trust is like, all right, well, I guess we got to defend our buddy. But that's really not the answer. I think that if you end up getting caught out there, you just leave him to die for the moment. We are going to see the jump away. Queen of Pain, BK beat up. Did she actually end up coming her TP net? No, is going to be able to blink away a second time here, and then the TP away. So that should be fine, as she did end up orchiding up the Spirit Breaker. So if they if they end up going down, though, like, you need this Night Stalker to be the person that finds the initiation, and you need Tusk to be behind the front lines. That's the 2 components for them to get back in here.
And I think also, because my pro had to commit the BKB just then, that was his 10-second BKB, so it's on cooldown for 48 seconds. It's a timing window for Trust to go in. They're going to go straight on the AA. They rip him to shreds, a punch onto Bun to sort of delay everything as Trust wants to get out, but never strike onto our Tusk. Snowball gets off, but unfortunately it's on at the Spirit Breaker. They don't really want to snowball in that direction. Winter's Curse commit onto Abba. They really want the kill on the Night Stalker, who actually pops the wand, doesn't get out though, unfortunately. Gem is on the deck, and no one's actually going to take that as they focus down the heroes. My pro, he wants the gem stunned up though, by the Alk. Manta has been deployed. My pro, he can survive. No, he gets out by a sliver of HP. Lyrical in the meantime gets chopped to bits by the Juggernaut. 4 heroes dead for Trust. And Pang5, They have done it. This is the comeback. They're going to take a T2 and most likely going to at least drop this T3 as well.
That was a dieback on the Tusk. He ended up buying back and going down a second time, and now 42 seconds without him, 50 seconds without the Wraith King. He does not have a buyback. He does have a buyback, excuse me, but hasn't committed it yet. The other thing there that was so important, the AA wanted to try and get the AA blast off on top of the Alchemist, but he ended up missing. He blew it open too quickly the second time through, and so the fact that the Alch was able to regen throughout that whole fight, it's just everything that could have gone wrong in that engagement went wrong. The only positive part was that the Queen of Pain was able to get out with the gem, and you just need to sort of regroup at this point. It's, I mean, I think that the fact that the Juggernaut ended up going for that early battle build was the biggest thing right here for the Pang5, because he's kind of been that backbone for their engagements, where he's been able to just sort of passively hit away at these heroes over and over again. You take a look at the net worth difference over the course of this last couple of minutes. In the space of 6 minutes, we've seen a change in net worth of now upwards of 20,000 gold. It has just been disaster after disaster for the side of Signature.Trust, and I don't know if they're in a position to come back now.
I don't think they're actually in that position as well, because you look at Lyrical. Now, this is a Wraith King that had a massive, massive early game advantage. He only has a Blink and a BKB plus a Midas right now. This guy's hitting like a puppy. And I think for Pang5, they really don't care about this Wraith King anymore. He might get a couple of lucky crits with the Mortal Strike, but this hero is not a factor anymore. It's mostly the Queen of Pain as well as the Night Stalker that's really doing all the work. The Tusk is simply there to be that utility hero with the snowballs and the shards. But that's it. There's no more damage output for Sig.Trust outside of those two heroes. And I think this might be the nail in the coffin if they can't win this next team fight. Very risky for them to go into this. They do not have any vision outside of that one ward that was there. So we'll see who gets to jump first.
Oh, and we just got the Agnum Scepter delivered to the Nyx Assassin also, so that's going to be relevant in this fight. The A-Blast is going to be pretty big, hitting onto several different heroes, but Signature.Trust is dropping so low. Sonic Wave or not, they're going to be able to come out of this one ahead. A couple more heroes going down in the middle of all of it. The Manta-style illusions are starting to rip them to shreds, and Signature.Trust is not looking very healthy. They killed off the Alchemist, but to what end? Oh, MadPro, is he going to be able to get out of here? They don't have the ability to stun him up. Nice Orchid usage there, which is going to be enough to keep Rage from the Dream to be able to till him off. And this Nyx Assassin now with the Agnum Scepter, he's got a great disable. In terms of that fight recap, it wasn't as clean as some of the other ones since the Alchemist went down, but still wonderful. And top 3 net worths going the side of Pang5. They've been able to turn this one back around. This is ridiculous here.
I'm impressed. I am very impressed. And you consider the kind of start that they had, and then they come back off the back of not just a couple of good team fights, but I think they also made some very good decisions as well during those team fights, ripping Trust to shreds. Do you feel like it was also a couple of missteps by Trust building a little bit too defensively up against Pang5?
They were thinking too much about the late game. There's going to be the stun on top of 2. Walrus Punch is going to be committed, but Rage to a Dream doesn't care. As soon as that A Blast goes down, his passive regeneration right now is just so high with that healing ward around him also. So, yeah, I think that probably itemization, given the scenario, was a bit of a problem. They built for the late game, but then played for the early game, if that makes sense. You see the couple of Midases that they have on these heroes. The Night Stalker, he ended up going for the Hand of Midas. Also, the Wraith King went for the Hand of Midas. And then you have, I believe, the Ancient Apparition going for the Hand of Midas. And then they tried to fight the side of Pang5. If you're going to commit to the late game, then you probably don't want to go for like early fighting a ton. And I think that they probably would have been okay for going for a bit of a later timing push when they had several of these items on up. But it's sort of just a disconnect between what they were trying to do item-wise and what they ended up doing game flow-wise.
So we're talking about items now. We have 4.2k gold on Lyrical, and he's just picked up a Sacred Relic.
Oh, God, this is going to be pretty crazy. They end up getting a quick kill there on the Ancient Apparition. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
This is very all-in. I think Trust know this, though. If they lose the next team fight, I think that's it. So if they can actually finish this up, then this is their last hurrah, really, to or not last try, but at least their chance at winning a massive team fight. So jumping straight onto the heroes. Akel taking a load of damage before he can really do anything. Stunned up way too much. Winter's Curse gonna keep them in place. 3 heroes dead for Trust. It's 4. Now, that's the GG call as well as Trust. Nail in the coffin. Pang Lima deliver it heavily. Oh my god, this team, I am
Yeah, that was
excited.
crazy. I honestly can't believe they ended up coming back from that one. A 20k net worth difference in roughly 6 minutes. You saw there at the end also the Aghanim Scepter being played to beautiful effect by the side of Pang5. They ended up catching, I believe, 4 with that Impale coming out and getting that bonus range up. It's just, I don't know. There's not a whole heck of a lot else to say. I think that if you're paying, or if you're Signature Trust at this point, you kind of have to collect yourself, say, all right, this draft wasn't the problem. It was, I believe, more so on their side, the execution and maybe the itemization. They had a chance. They were really far ahead, and they just didn't end up capitalizing on it. Anyways, we're going to be back in just a second with Game 2. This is, again, our only series of the day for the Southeast Asian Series number 2 out of the Beyond the Summit. And I think that probably this one should be starting up again in a second. So stick around. We'll see you guys soon.